I think he's sold out. It's all franchisees now.
I
It's
think
like
so.
the
Yes,
original owner isn't even a part of it.
Yeah,
but no.
Yeah, it was Sandy Beal, and I think Sandy sold out several years back. I think he did.
20 years ago when I opened this location, they made us learn the entire history of that, of like, you know, who started it, where the concept first came from, and now my brain is just filled with recipes. So
well, I miss going there. There's none around where I live, so.
You know, my store is the only one left in Illinois. So,
oh man, really?
I know.
Times changed, don't they?
Well, COVID took out about 18 stores across the country, and then now we're just holding strong. So, and apparently, I am the second highest paid person in the company. So.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, that's a good deal.
No, it's not. that means I'm hitting that ceiling, you know. Okay, guys. Grant, are you all set?
I think so. Yeah.
If you run into any problems, just message me and I'll run back out here.
Okay. All right. And Walter, are you recording, Walter, just before you go?
Yes, I am. Walter? I've got a recording going.
Okay.
Perfect. Super. Have a good chat, guys.
Thanks for setting this up.
Deb, keep them in line.
You know it.
Okay, so maybe Walter, you set this up. Maybe you can do the introduction. We have Deb Frew from the Metaphysical Tribe in Illinois. The reason I brought her in, just for background, is that when Deb had her last event last August, she brought in the radios, and we had a CE-5 there, and I think Marcel Vidovic was running it, and he said it was the most active CE-5 he had ever been in part. Him and what was the other girl?
Kimberly Marie. Kimberly,
yeah. So I didn't really see anything, and I don't know if you guys are going to make. We've got it online, but there was a lot of photos taken, a lot of stuff happened there. I didn't think anything had happened until it was all over, but that's why I brought you in. You might have some questions about radios, about maybe some ideas for what to do next year or whatever, and you have our little story. And I actually taped the radios that were going during the CE-5 for that period of time when they started chattering in the circle when you did your event in Illinois.
Well, if y'all would like, let me do a little introduction of Gary Borse, who's here with us today. Gary and I are Floridians and Facebook friends. He is a painter of national renown, and I'd invite you to see his just beautiful work at GaryBorse.com. He's up in upper central Florida, and he has CE-5 encounters in his backyard where he has built an all-weather ET staging area for friends and invitees to attend. Today, though, is Chirpa's Day, and the Chirpa is the sounds that come from $389 off-the-shelf walkie-talkies that Gary owns. Now, please look out for your own personal anomalies during this session. In one of the Zoom conferences Gary and I attended, there were 3 of us. A flashlight turned on all by itself in an apartment hundreds of miles distant from Gary, and a tri-field meter was set off in the same location consistently and for no known reason. So look at what's going on around you and report if you have any unusual activity. It's not uncommon that that happens in these sessions. Now, the question today is this ET? Gary has seen craft during these sessions, and Gary has received telepathic messages when they've arrived. So here's the setup. Gary will be outside with 3 walkie-talkies, as you can see, in a row. He will key one of the walkie-talkies as if to talk, and we'll wait to see if we get responses. Sometimes he will boombox 8 bars or so of Mozart and Bach, and that's for the enjoyment of the listeners, and that's with a capital L, you know, whoever they may be. For those in the future viewing this Zoom, anyone who wants to do this experience is encouraged, it's valuable, and it's sought. We have not decoded these chirps. You may be the one who can decode the chirps, find some common language there, and be able to post it up yourself. So with that said, over to Gary. Grant and Deb Frew.
Beautiful.
Nice to meet you all.
Same here,
Beautiful.
Gary.
I'm from Chicago, so I have a lot of respect for you all winter long. And you too,
And I'm in
Grant.
Winnipeg. I'm even colder yet. So
I know. I've been up there. I fished up there in Sioux Lookout for 30 years with my dad. Every spring we went. Yeah.
wow. Maybe give us a background on how you got into this, because this is kind of a new field, this radio thing.
Yeah.
And what do you call it? Some people call it CE-6, or what's your name for this? And how do you get involved?
It's still CE-5 to me. I mean, it's human initiated contact or heist, whatever you want to call it. But I've got this from Jimmy Blanchett, you know, who to me is a genius, and he's got a heart of gold. And when I started doing this, I've been doing CE-5 now for almost, well, about 4.5, almost 5 years since I've had my first experience with CE-5. And thanks to Dr. Greer. And I just started using these particular radios several months ago. And what's happened is I've developed more of a relationship with this non-human intelligence since I've been doing this. What's happened is whenever I want to have some kind of a contact, I can turn the radios on and I can start talking to them, and I'll broadcast music. I listen to classical music almost exclusively when I'm in my studio anyway, listen to jazz and rock all the time, but they really prefer the relaxed classical music genre, because there's mathematics going on there. I don't know if they have ears and they can hear, or if they're just getting these messages of the music telepathically through me. But we know that we connect with our heart. We know that we connect with the heart space. And when you play music, that's one way to connect with your heart. And you're sharing that with them. And that's the whole thing with me is you're sharing your existence with these other beings who are out here. So what better way to share it? Now, he's agreeing with me. I've already had contacts before we did this, and that's my canary in the coal mine number. My yellow one is talking now, because that's the one I broadcasted. Here comes the blue guy. The bluebird is talking now, and they're saying hello to you. So, you know, while I do this, and I've done it while I paint, and mostly for our CE-5s, whether it's by myself or with individuals or groups, it's always successful. And I don't know if these are the same beings that come back time after time, if they're my buddies, and maybe they are. The sounds are always the chirping sounds, but the thing is, they're different. It's the frequency or the change in the volume that goes up and down. There's something going on there where they can give you these little delicate chirps when they're talking, or they can be very, very forceful and just slam the hell out of the radio. And you can just feel it, especially if you're holding the receiver in your hand. You can feel these sounds, this energy come through. And that's what it basically is energy. But the trick that Jimmy proved is that we can take 3 radios or 4 or 5, and we tune them all to the same frequency. And I know that he's demonstrated this with you, and he's Grant, and he's also got several videos that he's put out on his own channel that demonstrates this, and he's done papers, and he's done scientific journals. So this is a reality where we can sit there and call them on one radio, and you can see the other radios will light up to show that we're broadcasting on the same channel. And then when he comes back, or she or they or whoever it is, the signal will only come in the radio that we're talking to. And then later on, it'll pop from another one into another one, and then back and forth. And especially if I pick up the blue radio and I start talking through the blue radio, then we're going to have more activity coming through the blue radio than the other radios. And this is the thing, how they can go inside these frequencies, and they can defy our physics for us to teach us a lesson, but whatever it is. But the thing is that it works. It's, you know, they're trying to, billions of dollars we spent with the SETI program with the Shostak. They haven't come up with, they've come up with nothing. Billions of dollars, and he writes articles for the media to tell you there's nothing out there. Well, we should stop funding the guy. We could spend $89, and here we get one radio for $89. In 5 minutes, I read the instructions. I got contact. I'm having beings talk to me. I can talk to them. They come right back to me again. I can paint for a while, and then all of a sudden they'll start chirping, and I'll pick up the phone and I'll talk to them, and then they'll come back and talk to me. Then they'll be silent until I do it again. It's just absolutely amazing what goes on. And I've taken these radios and traveled with them in the car to Tampa and other places in Florida. And as I'm driving, broadcasting music, and it'll take a little while to hook up, but they will eventually hook up with me in the car, and they'll follow me wherever I'm going and be with me the whole time I'm gone.
Let me jump in here for a second. Gary has painted the antennas 3 different colors because as he picks them up and keys them and replaces them, he'll move them around so that it isn't necessarily going to be red, blue, yellow. It will be red, yellow, blue. And so as he picks them up and moves them around, we'll change places so that there isn't just a particular walkie-talkie in a particular place. It doesn't make any difference where he puts them, he gets responses. The second thing is if you look at the front of the walkie-talkie, there's a little red button there, and right below the red button is a green light. And when the walkie-talkie chirps or communicates, that green light will blink. So if you're trying to figure out which one it is, look down there right below that red button, look at that green light, and it'll indicate the active walkie-talkie.
I have a question for you, Gary.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. So for those who are just never heard of this type of communication, I'm familiar with Jimmy Blanchette, who actually developed it. And he has a huge radio array in his backyard, and he will bounce a message off of the moon or off of Jupiter and let it spread through the cosmos so that if there are beings or whichever beings can understand it, can pick it up and follow it back. He has a way of taking a 2-dimensional drawing or, GIF or whatever, and translating it into an actual chirping type of call. And what I'm wondering is I was always curious, is there a way to, if you can put a 2-dimensional welcome to, my world, here's where I live, and these are my coordinates and so forth, and you can somehow get that into a radio file and send it out. When something comes back in, are you able, or is it able to be decoded in any way at all?
Well, that's the game. We have to find out how to do that. I mean, I've gotten telepathic messages. So as far as, putting out something, a drawing or a picture or something like that, I mean, you're doing that in your mind anyway.
Right.
So the fact that when we're communicating somehow through this, we know that we are hooked up through our consciousness, regardless of how it's happening. But somebody out there somewhere is able to communicate better telepathically than myself or a lot of other people that are doing this. And eventually we're going to find someone who's going to be able to get more messages from them besides the simple messages that I've received. I mean, doing this in a CE-5, I mean, they came out right straight out and right into my head. And we were communicating over and over, and I was playing different songs for them. And we were laughing because things were happening and all kinds of stuff was going on. And all of a sudden I got this telepathic message, and it goes, look up now. We're right above you. And I told everyone, they said they're right above us. And I pointed to the sky. I said, look up, everybody, right now. They said they're right here. And I heard it in my head. And all of a sudden, there they were in the ship, and the ship lights up, and all the lights go on, and everyone just totally just freaked. Everyone's spellbound. And then all of a sudden, all the yelling and screaming. And I grabbed the laser, and I hit it with one light, and there were 2 lights, and then a third light came on. And then it got really bright, and then it flashed me back a few times. And we were doing this for maybe 2 minutes, and that's like forever in CE-5 time. Yes. I mean, a good sighting is maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and you have something like that is just absolutely incredible. So one of the people in the group saw or maybe 2 people saw, there was like 10 or 12 of us at night, saw these little lights that flew away from the ship itself that turned and went a different direction. And then the 3rd light went on for us. And we saw the 3 lights there for a little while. One was getting brighter and dimmer. And then as the ship started to move on, they were still chirping the whole time, as you're chirping now, saying hello. As the ship started to move on, they threw a shooter out the window. And we were just screaming. I mean, it was just mind-boggling for everybody. And we had first-timers there. And when you have people that have that kind of an experience that's just overboard for the first time, it's a blowout. And they were falling down and screaming and crying. And I had tears coming out of my eyes because the first thing out of one of my friends' mouth was that I knew you were there all the time. And I said, that's exactly what I said the first time I had my experience. And I had tears in my eyes just from that alone. And here we were seeing continuous activity all night long with flash bulbs and flyers. And I started writing reports because there's just so much that goes on. I have to start writing it down. And I've been doing this almost 5 years and I hardly write it down at all because there's just so much, you know.
Goodness. I'm glad you're writing it down. Capture as much as you can.
Yeah, well, it's so fun. It's just so amazing. But, you know, when we talk about it, it's just like with your groups, people have to understand that this whole thing with contact, with human initiated contact, you must open up your heart. You must get rid of your fear, forget about anything, just forget about everything and just go away from yourself and open yourself up. And the most important thing is the desire. The more juice that you can put out there to say you want to see ETs and you want to meet non-human intelligence and you want to be involved and you want to share your existence experience with them, the more they're going to come. And maybe they're acknowledging my words now because we are hooked up. And by the way, you're also hooked up to them, and so is Grant and so is Walter through your consciousness, through our Zoom right now, through these satellites. So as when I play some music, you have to listen to the music, do a little meditation into the 8 bars or 12 bars, whatever I play. Think about how it makes you feel and ask them to visit you now. Ask them, tell them where you are and ask them to come and visit you. Some of them might know you. You might know some of my guys, my space buddies might be yours. You know, how do we know, you know, who's who? But the thing is that while we do this, we already proved that the 3 of us doing it, myself and Walter and Nancy DeTurk, we showed that we could make something happen. And it was kind of like all over with me moving the radios around and trying to stop the feedback and all these other things. But now I think we got it down in a situation where I use rock tape to tape everything down. And I can play some music for them and we can move out and see if we can do something. They're getting anxious.
Hey, Deb.
Yes.
You're probably familiar with, and I don't remember if it was Carl Sagan or excuse me, who it was that sent a radio signal out randomly in space and waited and came back. And the signal they sent out was binary. It looked like a binary human being, and it had a few things, and it had some music of ours that so they could listen to it.
Oh, are you talking about the golden record? The golden record the golden record.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yes. They got the crop circle response to it. Well, that set the precedent that they are willing to communicate on that basis. And this is something like what's going on here with Gary Short, the crop circle, of course.
Can I ask a question about, first of all, the frequency? Are you using that 144 frequency? And
no, I'm a little bit higher than that.
Okay.
I'm a little higher than that. Not much, but a little bit.
Okay. And now I forgot my other question. Somebody else go ahead with the question.
Gary, will it work at 150 or 155 or is
it's in the 150s and they're all tuned the same on a frequency mode. They're not on the channel mode. So right. that way I keep them they're fine tuned.
Are you using the same frequency each time?
Yes, all the time.
Okay.
I mean, I've done other frequencies and I can do that, but when they know where I am, they know where I'm at here.
Okay.
They're going crazy right now. I mean, you know, I'm getting, this isn't just chirping. These guys are yelling. I don't know if they're asking.
It's all because of Grant. I mean, Grant just brings out the chirp in everybody. So
they're going nuts now.
I remember when my question was, I think Jimmy had mentioned this. Is anybody actually trying to get the Rosetta Stone, trying to decode this thing? Because if you can, you know, create a signal going one way, you'd figure, and maybe we can put it out as a challenge to people, that somebody comes up and tries to decode what this is. I mean, whatever they think it is. And because that would seem to be the catch 22, is if somebody can somehow actually decode this thing, then you've got real direct communication between one side and the other.
Yeah, I agree.
And I also agree that, you know, the more people that are doing this, the more chances there for somebody to, you know, have that eureka moment where they can say, oh, now I get it. Let me explain it to you. Because, you know, Grant, you've shown some incredible radio footage of a radio that is broadcasting in a heartbeat. And, you know, that's got to have a completely different message than, you know, the usual squawk chatter that we hear. But the squawk chatter seems to, it seems to be like a call and response. It isn't just random noise. So, so Gary, I'd like to ask you, you know, if somebody's tuning into this podcast and they say, I want to get in on this, it seems like a really good entry-level way to learn how to have this kind of communication. Explain how to do it. I mean, where do we start?
Well, basically, what you first have to do is sit outside and look up at the stars. It's better to go out at night and to do this, and to learn the CE-5 method in the first place, so that you are learning how to open up your heart, and you're learning how to talk to them telepathically, ask them to come to show up. Maybe use the Dr. Greer's app with the crop circle tones and the Mount Shasta tones. Whatever it takes for you to actually sit out there until you can actually feel relaxed and comfortable asking for a visit from non-human intelligence. Once you get the radio, this will be a secondary thing for you. You first have to learn how to make the contact. This is what I believe. I mean, I've had friends now that have gotten radios and they have not been lucky with them at all. So, you know, I believe that having a little relationship at first will help, but just by turning them on and by talking to them, whether you're broadcasting in the radio or whether you're using your mind when you squeeze the trigger and broadcasting what's on your mind, whatever it is, you have to be really sincere. And like I say, you've got to crank up the juice. You've got to have that desire to make the contact. And I don't know if people that aren't privy to CE-5 and who don't know what this is all about would be able to really do that. But they could try. I recommend everyone try. But the point is, once you do, things change. A lot of stuff happens. My life has changed so much since I made contact. I can't even go into what's happened to me. All the things that have happened to me.
Well, at our event this year at the Worldwide Metaphysical Tribe, we had a CE-5 to close the weekend, and it was the first time for nearly everyone there. And there were 50 or so people. And it was the first time. And the hardest part in feedback that I got later, the hardest part was to commit to contact with no conditions, because that lets go of the fear. And it was really hard for people to say, yes, you can come, but stay way far away so I can just barely see you.
Or,
you know, or yes, you can come, but I don't want you to be closer than the treetops. You know, that's right. And contact with no conditions is, I think, once you can cross that threshold, and our group was all confronting that, and we were all stepping over that at the same time. I think that's why we had such a powerful night,
Yeah.
because it wasn't so much that we were able to reach the point where we could send love or have the desire, but just to be able to say, okay, I'm in it completely, you know, was the thing that really, I think, flipped the switch for us. So you have to start small and you work your way through it.
One of the, Walter and I were talking yesterday and about how people want to come just for the show. They want to see a show, and sometimes there is an incredible show that you'll never forget. But when I've had people come that just come for the sole reason to see that this is real, they already have their heart open, because you can already tell that they believe that there's something going on, that there's other life out there, and they're open, and they're so open, and they're so excited. That excitement starts to open them up. And then when they sit down, it's just amazing. I mean, when we had the night of that ship that showed up, but we have them a lot, but when we had that one night where they gave us the message for the first time, before we even got started, there were flashes in the yard, and one of the guys that was here for the first time saw the flash in the yard of the orb, and I saw it out of the corner of my eye right away. I mean, just before we all sat down. And I said, they're here. They're right here. They're waiting for us to get started. So whenever you guys are ready, just like here, he's waiting for me now to play music. He's asking me to play something for me.
Can I ask one question? And you probably already know the answer, but you hear all these people saying they're trying to figure this thing out. You have the armed civicists and the intelligence community saying that they got these investigations. You got the Skinwalker Ranch people. Has anybody made an offer to you to look at this kind of stuff?
No. To me, I think I think that all these people calling for investigations is ridiculous. We've been investigating for 75 years. You know yourself, you've got thousands of hours of investigation, and this is all we've uncovered so much. No, I don't. I think that, like, I just heard Lou Elizondo on Third Phase of the Moon yesterday, I think it was. And I mean, he's talking, well, they're starting to show up more and more and more. And it's like he's starting to work his way, I think, into that area where, well, they may be getting aggressive or something like that. These types of things, to me, these people are being ridiculous. I mean, Jacques Vallée just said it on an interview I heard the other day. He goes, don't wait for the military and the government to tell you what's real or what you should believe. Talk to your neighbors. They see them all the time. They have contact.
Well, Gary has really made a commitment to this. Just over his shoulder, I think, if I'm pointing in the right direction, Gary has built a central fire hearth and an area where people can sit down. It's really gorgeous, made out of slate and concrete. And so, he's walking the walk and talking the talk at the same time. He's really made a commitment to this. He has invitees and friends come over to CE-5 in this beautiful setting that he has right in back of his home. So these people, these extraterrestrials or whatever kind of beings that we're communicating with here, they know that Gary's heart is where it's at. And I think that's a big part of the reason why he's having the luck in the communication that he's having.
Yeah, when you look at all the people that we're all involved with, and I mean, when I say we're all involved with, everyone that we see and that we talk with on Zooms, and everyone that's involved in ufology, everyone that I know has a big heart, has an open heart. And that's one of the reasons that they're involved in this. And that's one of the reasons that they're contacted and the ETs aren't afraid to interact with them. And that's really what it's all about. We want to interact and co-create with these extraterrestrials. Hey, can you help us with all these problems we got here? Can you help us, show us how to get away from this oil? It's like we're being strangled to death by oil and politics, and it's just being really terrible. Can you guys help us? I mean, that's what I think everyone asks for when you do these globals. A lot of people are asking for help from the planet rather than help for themselves. It's coming back again.
Helping the planet will help ourselves anyway. So
yeah. Maybe we should play some music, but
I was thinking maybe we should play some music. But first, can you explain? I think you mentioned a little bit before why one radio is talking, or is there certain radios that do certain things to different colors in terms of how they're responding?
No, I just had them so that you could see which ones are going off, and you could say, well, the yellow one's going, or the blue one's going, or the red one's going. And I don't know if you can see the lights as well out here as you can if I was in a dark room. That's really the only reason I did that. When Walter and I talked about it yesterday, and I ripped out some acrylics, just painted a color, 3 colors. So no, it doesn't matter which one you use. It really, and to see which one they're coming through, when I broadcast, I'll keep them down so they don't squeal, but they'll just come over whatever one that they like, and sometimes you'll see them go 1, 2, 3, and they'll just play games. I mean, one of the things that I think is really important with this whole thing, and all these people are talking about all these different things and contact, but let's get down to the seriousness of asking and finding out some answers. Do these beings breathe argon or oxygen? Do they have liquid diets, solid food diets? Do they have families? Do they live in caves or cities? Do they have jobs? Do they play sports? Do they play jokes on each other? I mean, do they have music? I mean, these are the questions to ask to find out. And if we can get telepathic messages to find out what these other worlds are really like, or are they not going to allow us to know about it until after we're dead? I don't know.
Is there a message? You talked about telepathic stuff. A lot of experiencers will talk about messages that they're given. Do they give you any message about the Earth or why they're here or what this is all about?
No, I've never. The only telepathic messages I've gotten were, "Hey, can you see us now?" And it was a huge voice in my forehead, a male voice. And I just saw a flash in the sky, and they said, "Can you see us now?" And I looked up at the flash, and here was this blue neon triangle sitting there in the sky. And then it was perfectly equilateral triangle. And then it turned to look at me like this, to point at me like an arrow. And then I watched it, and then it moved back like that to an equilateral, and then it started to rotate, and then it just moved away and disappeared. And then I had the telepathic message that one night to look up, and they were over our head, and that was clear as a bell, and there they were. And then I've had a few other messages that were here type of thing, but nothing other than that. When I first started, I did get an answer back from somebody that said that I asked him, "Do you go to school? Do you send your children to school? You have families?" And the answer I got back was no, everything is in the DNA, and all the knowledge is in the DNA passed on. And if their children need new knowledge, then they know where to look for it. So, that was one of the only messages I really got. And I just thought that just blew my mind, because it was like one of those things where you get the knowing thing that comes to you. By the way, I read Contact Modalities. I told Walter I ate that book for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Great book. But what you're saying, Gary, is just has a parallel here in Earth life, and that's the oak seed. The oak seed has all the information for that mighty oak, and if it can grow and if it's allowed, then everything that it needs is contained in there. So
that's right. Perfect analogy. Yep, we got the seeds going. I mean, we've been seeding them for a while. So, but the fact of the matter is that when we want to have contact, we can, and then taking it from there and finding out who it is and what it's all about and everything. That's a different ballgame. But right now, they're talking to us. I mean, they're definitely hooked up to us. Wow. So,
well, there's
I do have a. Go ahead, Walter, and then I'll jump in. Well, I just wanted to say,
you
Walter.
First. You.
Okay. Back in the day, Gary, I don't know how far back your interest in these things go. I was born, reading these books and wondering about things. And, during the 50s and 60s, there were kind of cults and people that regular people would think were crazy, that were talking to Pleiadians and Andromedans, and everybody was wearing a costume, and it was kind of weird and you wanted to keep your arm's length from them, but you couldn't help but read it anyway because you just had to know, what are they going to tell you? Is there anything practical in there? And so I'm wondering the difference between, maybe those people were vanguard people, maybe they really needed to be way showers and crazy people back in the time when nobody would take that job, you know? And I'm wondering what the parallels are with how we do it now. Do you have any thoughts? Gary, are you there?
How we do it now, how we do what now, how we deal with it?
Well, they claimed contact and messages for humanity and very dogmatic ways of being, but that was then and this is now. So I'm just wondering if you see parallels or if you see that as a jumping off point to today.
No, I mean, read the Beyond UFOs and all the surveys that they did with the Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation with Ray Hernandez and all those people. And we're getting the same, they're getting the same messages today everywhere, all around the world as they were getting back then. I mean, you know, and we're telling people that this planet is in trouble. If you guys keep doing what you're doing, you're going to destroy your environment and you guys are all going to perish. You're going to go extinct. And they're not saying that why. They're not saying it's because of oil or because of pandemics. Or they're just saying you're screwing it up, and you gotta get together and find out what's going on and fix it. You know. So I mean, until we really establish people that we can prove that these messages are well, we already know that they're real because so many people are getting them, and a lot of people getting the same. But somehow we have to align that together and line it up so that we're getting a better handle on who we're communicating with. Is this a group of people? Is it one individual that represents a civilization? Is it all these guys that are on the cruise ships that are riding around here? I mean, who are we communicating with? I think that's the first thing that we need to find out. And then we can establish a regular open channel with that being or those people that can be documented on a daily basis so we could see what's going on and hear what's being, you know, post what people are saying. We could have more information coming that way. I think that would be great, but you know, are we there? Don't know. We're close. I feel we're very, very close. You know,
I worry that with all the division right now, that there's just be the same division. You know, you can't tell me what to do. Don't, you know, I can't play with the team because I'm free and I'm an individual. And that's what bothers me and worries me the most, you know, is even if we have direct, verifiable, no doubt, this is real contact, that people say, you know what, I don't care. So.
Well, Deb, I'll tell you something about that. Two comments. The first comment is that, and I see it happening in my own life. I just be me, and I see people just splitting away and splitting off from me and not having to want to have anything to do with me. And I ultimately think we're all going to end up in a reality where we are either part of this messaging communication with extraterrestrials, or we're going to be part of the reality that is cynical and skeptical of it. And those trains are not going to meet anymore. I think that's really what's going to happen. And the protocol issues are less and less and less. Look, I was with Dr. Greer on Marco, and it was protocol based. Gary's situation here has really no protocol to it. It's just, here's 3 walkie-talkies, turn them on, sit down, shut up. And the truth of the matter is, I think that's what's happening. If what I believe, I firmly believe this is the case, is this is an indication that we are getting closer and closer and closer to direct open contact, face-to-face exchange with extraterrestrials here on the Terra, where we can have these kinds of questions that Gary's asking, you're asking, Grant, all of us are asking. We can start having those exchanges. So I think that what's happening here is that it's really advancing very quickly. And I anticipate that within, this is 2021, we're 2022 for all practical purposes. I anticipate that open contact could happen in the next 24 to 36 months or sometime shortly after that. So we haven't got a lot of time to get to this point where we don't have to have a SETI antenna, or we don't have to have a Greer set of protocols. Nothing against Dr. Greer, he's a great success. But where we can just, like Gary's, and sit down in the backyard and say, hey guys, let's have a conversation. Now, I do believe it's going to start with a very, very small minority of people, and then it will grow as the word gets out and more people then accept this, and more people begin to split off into the camps of the believers and doers and the camps of the skeptics and the cynics.
Right.
But I honestly do believe we're getting a lot more closer to this than we have anticipated. And this type of experimentation with the Sherpas here is one more step in that protocol-less direction.
Thanks. Yes.
Let me make a point on that as well, that I agree with Walter that I've been in this since 1975, and I never thought we'd be where we are right now. And it came to that 1997 article in the New York Times where they put it out, yeah, the government is actually studying this thing, and they actually did hide it, and everybody went, yeah, so what? I knew that already. It's like this acclimatization thing that I think the phenomena is doing, in that, like people say it's not a circus, and I say it is a circus. They are actually doing the circus thing, because if they wanted to land and do a direct message, they do it. They're not. They're using this bizarre little thing where, oh, let's do the radios, and everybody's trying to figure out, like, how are they hoaxing the radios? How are they doing this? And yet everybody's in it, everybody's paying attention, and everybody's trying to figure it out. So it's this gradual thing that the intelligence is doing it through this gradual breadcrumb thing. It's not really directly doing it. And I would say that it may look depressing, but in the end, I think the more, it's almost like African Americans or gay rights or whatever. There was a lot of bad movies about them and a lot of bad jokes and stuff like that. But as long as they spell your name right, consciousness is rising.
Yeah, it's like a teaser. They're teasing us.
Yeah,
they're letting us know that they're here right now, and they're teasing us. They know that we can't figure out what they're saying to us unless they can really get through. And one of the things of getting through is to go into that meditation. And when we do the CE-5, I encourage people. You're going to turn you down.
He's getting excited. He's getting excited.
Yeah, and I tell people, I say, every 15 minutes you need to close your eyes. And you need to go inside, and you need to start talking to them again. And you need to go ahead and drop into that. You have to drop into that slot, let yourself slide right in there and start talking to them again and give it some juice. Because what you do is, we don't know in a period of an evening to have, 10, 12, 20 different sightings going on. How many civilizations are out here with us tonight? We don't know if it's one group. I mean, it's got to be more than just one, because there's so many different things that happen. But when you keep on talking and keep on asking, you're reaching different people, because all of us are shooting our minds out there into different directions, even though we're on the same page of the consciousness thread, and we're hooked up in the common coherent thought sequencing mode. But still, the more you do that, the more you keep on going into that space. That's where the messages will come, not just sitting there looking out at the sky and waiting for something to happen, because it's up to you to make that happen.
Well, I'd like to answer my own question and just say that, it had to be in the past that you were that George Adamski guy, or you were some lucky Barney and Betty Hill driving home from who knows where, at night in New York, or, and now it's more of a general admission kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anybody can come to this, and anybody, that's right. And anybody can learn what it takes to actually have the experience that the lucky guys, the experiencers, the direct experiencers have been having all this time. Now you can actually call it to you. It's the next level of this.
No, you know what it is, and you just kind of said it. We're lucky. We're the lucky ones. We are the ones that have had the experience. I feel very lucky, very fortunate, and blessed. Every day, my gratitude is overflowing. And that gratitude that you use while you're in CE-5s, thanking them for showing up and just thanking them for being your friends, that brings more, because that's opening up your heart even more. and that brings more things even closer to you. So the more you open up, that's where the orbs come right into your face, come right in the yard, in the trees, and the bushes. I mean, one night everyone went home and we were sitting here and it was all done and we had a great CE-5 and it was about maybe, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. And my wife was picking up stuff around the fire chimneys. And my friend and I were sitting next to each other side by side. All of a sudden I saw a light coming and we're still sitting there and we're still talking to him. And I said, someone's coming back. They must have forgot something. And then the light got brighter. And I said, they're coming up the driveway. Wow, that's really bright. And then all of a sudden, here's this light in front of us in the driveway. It's an orb the size of a UPS truck. And it's sitting there right in front of us. I mean, like I'm saying 50 feet, 60 feet in front of us. And it's huge. And I said, Robert, do you see what I'm looking at? And he goes, I'm looking right at it. And what he saw was a large orb with a small ball underneath it on the bottom, on the ground. I saw just one huge orb by itself. I didn't see the second orb. But here we were both looking at the same thing. We were right next 3 feet away from each other in the chairs, and we both saw something different. So, you know.
Well, that brings up the third portal for all of this, and that's digital cameras and digital phones. Because although you saw those with the naked eye, which is not very common.
Oh, no, it is here.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm coming to your house, Gary. In the meantime, you can go out in your own backyard with your digital phone and just photograph the complete blackness, and you'll be surprised what you find.
You know what I get a lot of is when I get the dogs riled up and I'll let them get out here and play just before dark and start snapping pictures, and you can see the orbs weaving around the dogs, going underneath and around, because all that playfulness, they bring them out. And I wonder if it's all my dogs that I have buried on my property over all these years coming out to play.
You mentioned the lucky. I have the same feeling that, and I make the joke now that 500 years from now, when people are doing past life regressions, they're going to come across people and they're going to say, you know, I was there when that UFO thing started. I was one of the people. And they go, yeah. The skeptic's going to say, yeah. Next, you're going to tell us you're Cleopatra. Everybody says they were back there when they Interesting. Deb, you may have to bring them in for a little thing when you're doing your CE-5 this year in August, and link up with Florida at the same time and see if you can get something going there.
Hey, that would be an awesome
I'd
experiment.
love you to come on anytime. Come on down here, you know.
Well, I'm not going to be able to fly my tribe out there, but we can definitely link up in some way, predetermined way, and I would love to do that.
Because your people will all be getting into it now because they had the experience last year.
Oh, they're all asking for it again.
Nobody knew until someone showed that one photograph to me. And I said, hey, do you see this photograph? And then suddenly this person had a photograph, and then it started going around the circle. You got photographs? Yeah, I got photographs. And you suddenly realize that all these people had these experiences and nobody said anything. People were just getting these photographs. And it probably could become a book. There's that much material happening in that one session. So it'd be interesting to link Gary into your session there, because I think all the people would be very interested to see round 2. Somebody else is doing this as well. And maybe figured out what the chirps mean.
Well, do
you use flash bulbs when you take in the pictures, or are you not using a flash?
I think people are on whatever they like to do. We were told this year that it didn't matter. If we wanted them, we could, and if we didn't, we didn't. And so we had a mixed bag.
Yeah, in the circle, I don't think anybody had their flashes going.
No, not in the circle.
And people use the cell phone cameras, and then some people use point and shoot cameras. And it's almost the same thing you're talking about, Gary. It may have more to do with the person who's running it than with the equipment you're using.
Yeah.
I actually had a vendor, Gary, this year who had a booth that was called Picture Yourself with an Orb. And she's a very talented photographer of orbs. And what she would do is you'd come to her booth and she'd take a dozen pictures of you, and then she'd send them to you. And sure enough, there would be orbs in your shot. So, and Grant's had her on a panel before. She's delightful.
Well, getting back to Grant's suggestion to play some music and let Gary do that. Let me make a comment about that. Gary's going to play some classical music, and he said that they seem to like that the best. But they have responded to rock and roll and heavy metal and everything else the reason that we're not going to do that today, or Gary's not going to do that today, is that he and I have done this 2 or 3 times, just playing around, make sure we got it right. And that he had everything set up, which he's done a fabulous job. Gary, by the way, thank you. But what has happened is when I go throw it up on YouTube, it would get copyright infringed. So
right.
We're hoping that Mrs. Mozart and Mr. Bach, the 45th, or whoever is out there, aren't going to copyright this, the Mozart and Bach. That's why that's
they're in the
chosen.
public domain.
Yeah, that's why that's been chosen. So
Sure.
We had a heck of a time. Just, I mean, you get about 10 seconds of something that is in the public domain, and YouTube has got a great filter. It'll catch it and boink your thing. And that means that you really are limited in the number of people that you can show. So that's the reason for the classical music. And
okay.
And
the other thing we could do is I see that Deb's got a piano behind her. She could go and play us a.
I don't play. My
I don't play. That's just for show, I guess.
plays. No, my husband plays. I don't play.
I've got a piano too. I just bang on it. But I played my guitar one night. I was out here with my guitar one night playing, and I was just playing, and I was making up a song about seeing ETs, and all of a sudden they show up with 2 shooters crisscross each other, and then the light went on over my head in the sky, and I went screaming for my wife to come and show her there was a ship over my head when I was holding my guitar. And by the time she got out here, they just dimmed out and just started moving away. And I was just totally amazed. I mean, it's just, I wasn't trying, I wasn't asking for the visit. I was just having an evening by myself on the porch, you know.
You know, Gary, in your communications, you're going to have to start explaining what a selfie is.
Right, really.
So they can hold still for it.
We've had some incredible experiences. I mean, one of our group experiences leading up to the group, they played with me for a whole week, telling me something was going to happen. I'm listening. I'm watching the YouTube clip of Trevor Noah on the Daily Show, and he's talking about Chinese cloning, and it says genetically modified humans right across the back screen behind him, you know. And he's talking about that, and I'm eating my soup, and all of a sudden on my phone comes up right across the top, right over it, genetically modified humans like your tweet. I almost spit my soup out. What? And then it said genetically modified humans is following you. And at the same time, across the back of Trevor Noah says genetically modified humans as he's doing the bit. So I was like blown away, you know, right off the bat. And then I realized that morning I had tweeted something on Twitter about UFOs, and this was just a group of people. But the thing is that the ETs pulled off that synchronized stunt, and I'll call it a stunt because that's what it is. Yep. And then later on in the week, we were getting ready to do this group with all these people that were coming from Canada and other friends of mine, and getting all excited. And these people were at the museum, and they were at the art museum down the road here. And I'm in my studio, and I decided to clean out one of my cabinets and pick some stuff up that I needed to move. And I pull out this mug, and I go, oh, I should have this in the house, you know. So I laid it up on the counter, and then I looked at my phone. I said, well, I haven't looked at my messages most of the day. Let me see if anyone's there. And I look, and here's a message from the people that were coming for the CE-5, and they go, we're at the museum, and we bought one of your mugs at the museum store. And I went, really? You know, so I went and I took a picture of the mug that I just pulled out of the thing, and I sent it to them. I said, is that the mug you got? And they went, yep. And I just, there it is again. So
it answers the question of whether or not ETs have a sense of humor.
Exactly. And that's what I was asking them all this time. I'm always asking them, I like playing jokes because that's how I am all my life. So anyway, so that 2 days later, the people come out for the CE-5. I went inside to get my cup of tea, and everyone was all situated and sitting out in a circle in the groups, and all the chairs were all out and everything. And I think there was almost a dozen. I think there were 10 of us that night. And the chimneys were going, and I went to get my tea and my laser. And when I came back out, one of the girls said, I just saw a flash, and I know it wasn't a plane. I said, they're here. I said, they've been here all week. They're here. I said, they're going to show up for us for real. And then all of a sudden, I look up, And it was just, I just looked to the north at Polaris, and right there were two lights, and they were coming fast. They were booking. And I never saw two lights like that in the sky coming right at me. And I said, ETs, ETs, they're here. And I pointed up at ETs, and it was like, it was a joke. It was like I was saying, ETs enter stage left, because we didn't even start yet. And all of a sudden they came flying, and everyone's looking at them, and they came right over our heads, and they stopped. And then he just said something to me. And then they turned on the third light, and everyone was yelling, it's the triangle. The triangle's right over our head. And then all of a sudden it started to do this goofy spinning and spinning with the lights. And then it moved away from us. And as it started, we were grabbing for cameras. And then all of a sudden it's over in the sky, way over the valley somewhere. Maybe, I don't know. In my mind, I pictured it over Ocala. And here it starts spinning, and it's a pyramid. It's a 5-sided pyramid, 4 sides and a bottom, and it's upside down, and it's spinning around in the sky. And now it's starting to wobble like a top, like it's going to fall over. And it's like, we're all screaming and yelling, and look at this thing. And all of a sudden, one of the points lights up really bright red. I mean, really, really red. And then it just disappeared, and everyone's yelling and screaming. And all of a sudden I get this message in my mind that said, adios, we do crop circles. And I just said it out loud to everybody. And it was like, that was like, I only got like maybe 3-4 of those messages in my life. And that was the one that just blew me away totally out of the box, because we saw them do a crop circle basically in the sky for us. I mean, and no matter how it was done, we don't have technology like that. Nobody could do that. And why would someone come here to do that for us, a group like us? That was our ET friends that came. We saw them coming. They were telling me all week they were coming. They showed up, and they pulled off one of the biggest stunts that you could ever imagine. That was the most incredible group thing I have ever experienced.
Yeah. That's the circus thing, the theory of wow.
Yeah, that's the circus right there.
Why do they have lights? So you can see them. They want you to see them. They're
exactly. So you'll tell everybody else that they're there.
Well, Grant's got a thread running on Facebook, 3 of them actually, and he asks questions like, why is it they don't have any sexual organs, and how come they don't have any faces, and why are they wearing cowboy boots? And all of the answers to those are basically the same thing. It's part Grant's theory of wow, and the other part of it is just like we're having fun here. And part of having the fun is humor. They are humorous. They represent themselves
exactly
often in a very humorous way.
That's how I communicate.
So I think the humor is a way of raising our vibration, raising our frequency, and it makes it easier for them to come and communicate. So, because when you're following things that you're having fun doing and you're excited and you're getting zoned out and everything, well, that's all that is just moving you out of your normal everyday frequency. And humor seems to be a big part of that for them. Very attractive.
Well, your joy, when you're joyous and you feel good, they like that. They want to feel good too. And then they feel what you're feeling. So when you get together with a group of people and it's a celebration, you are inviting them to join you in that celebration of life. And you're worshiping the divine just like they are. When you listen to this kind of music, or so I like listening to sacred music. The masses are good. Bach's Mass in B minor and Beethoven's Missa Solemnis, Mozart's Requiem, Mozart's Coronation, anything like that. The Bach's Requiem, Rachmaninoff's Vespers, whatever you listen to that is devotion to the divine in music, you are raising your vibration. Your feelings are going up into that. And you're actually talking to them while that's going on. That's when they're going to show up for you for real. And when, like you say, when we're having fun and we're laughing, more things seem to always happen for us. And I'm always joking with them because I just think it's funny because I always think when they come on and start talking to me, I always think of Seth Shostak, or Neil deGrasse Tyson. I just laugh. Hey Tyson, what's going on here? Are they threatening to pull your funding? Is that why you laugh like a little girl every time someone asks you about UFOs? It's a joke. Not about UFOs. It's about who's talking to us.
Can I ask a question about you? You mentioned the different types of classical music. I wrote a book called Inspired: The Paranormal World of Creativity, where I look at the inspiration that came to classical people. People don't realize that a lot of these guys said they were talking to God. I think it was like Beethoven made the famous quote where the guy, he has the left violin piece where the guy comes to him, he says, that was absolutely terrible. That left violin piece was absolutely terrible. It was unplayable. And then Beethoven says to him, I just want to let you know, when I made that, I was communing with God. Do you think we had time to worry about your little violin piece?
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you as an artist, do you get the inspiration as an artist? Do you feel that you're tapped in? Because you find a lot of the experiencer world, a lot of right-brained, creative musicians, artists, this sort of thing. Do you get inspiration when you paint?
Yes, all the time. And it, one of the things that happened to me, my art changed drastically in 2004 when my best friend died suddenly. And I experienced him in my studio with me about a week after I couldn't paint for a while or do anything. And then I started doing it. There you go. And then all of a sudden I started having these experiences, and all of a sudden my art changes. And one of my friends comes over and he looks at my work and he goes, do you know what you're doing? He says, nobody's doing what you're doing. And I said, well, I don't know. I'm trying something new. And I just kept on going into these new things. And constantly, I've always been an exploration type of artist. I want to learn and find out new things and be different, original. It's about originality. But anyway, so yes, I've been painting, and I it's funny because I ask for advice or something, and it's like I almost feel like they just tell me to just shut up and just do what you're doing and don't worry about it. And it just happens. Like I'll find myself making something that I don't even know what I'm going to paint today. I'm just going to start painting. And all of a sudden it's 6 hours later and I've got an image on the canvas and it's already starting to take shape with color and everything else. So, and then I've also done a few sessions where I've channeled with them, and I call it channeling. I don't know if I really channeled them or not, but I actually shut off the world. And I posted this on Facebook last 2019, October. And what I did is I set myself up with a bunch of canvases and I just shut out the world. I took my time that I was going to be in the studio and I wasn't going to do anything or go anywhere. And the dogs were locked out. Everyone was locked out for me. And I just started covering the canvas with color, and I played my music and I broadcast and I did a CE-5. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to see all these things show up in the water and the paint. And I'm just slopping paint all over the place. And I came up with these paintings with these beings and stuff that I've never done anything like it before. So that really, really opened me up to the possibility that I could do more of that if I could find, the time and really do it. But I'm always trying to, make a living doing what I do. But eventually, I think that we're going to be able to co-create with ETs. Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright says that as well in her Exoconscious book. Co-create with ETs once we get to know them better, and we can hook up with them on that level where we can understand them and have that kind of a relationship. And I want that relationship in my life.
You know that the famous medium Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth,
yes.
She wrote a book that was ostensibly written by Paul Cezanne, and he explained how atoms come together and sort of float down through space and attract each other, and then more and more of them, and they become more and more solid until we hit, solid, what we think is solid. And he described how that informed his creative process. I feel like you talk to Gauguin when you paint. I see Gauguin.
I ask other painters to come into me when I paint. I've talked to Salvador Dali, I talked to Picasso, I talked to Maxfield Parrish, I talked to all kinds of other artists that I like, Henry Potas, and I ask for color experience and for just little tricks that come through. And sometimes they do, and then I'm looking at my work and I'm like, boy, I look at it, I go, did I really do that? How did I do that? I never did anything like that before. So you have to realize that you're going into that space. When I paint, I go into deep meditation when I paint. And that's really the way to do it, is to disconnect and just let anything happen. You know, I'm going to mix up orange. I think I'm going to make some orange. And all of a sudden I got some green going out there and I'm painting with green. I'm like, that wasn't my intention, but someone told me to put that there and it worked. So that's really the synchronicity that I look for. And and it's thrilling. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's the not setting of expectations, which is a big part of that. And what Gary is basically saying, if I'm hearing him, is he stays in what we call the now, that there really isn't a past and that there really isn't a future. It's all right now. It's interpretation models that we have because we're living a physical linear time existence, but you can transcend that. And if you concentrate, meditation is a great way of doing this. But if you have something like Gary, which is basically what Gary is doing, is a meditation. When he is is working in that manner, it's just another form of meditation, of consciousness alteration. And when you do those kinds of things, you can expect great things to come forward. If you start saying, "Oh, I want the painting to look like this, or my song to look like that,
work.
Or I want to be at the top of the 100 chart in the rock," whatever it is,
not going to work. You've got pre-existing conditions. Get rid of those pre-existing conditions and get that out of there, because you have to let go. You have to let yourself completely go and let anybody else out there take over. And really, that's it. Is just like moving out of the way and let somebody else do the work.
Which is exactly like metaphysics is.
Yes, exactly.
Get out of the way
to the side.
That's right. Yep. Grant has written a wonderful book. It's called Tuning In. I don't remember the last part of it, but it's about all of the rock and roll and other creative musicians who have come forward with where they got the inspiration for their work. And a lot of it was directly inspired by their own personal extraterrestrial encounters, including abductions and takings of the like. And some of them were just, I was in this meditation or in this zone, the words came to me. Led Zeppelin, I think Grant was originally talking about here. We were talking about this on Facebook. Wrote
Stairway to Heaven.
Right, Stairway to Heaven. And the first few chords were kind of like, like Gary, you slopping stuff around. Next thing they know, they got a song. And I mean, like the next thing they know, 2 minutes later, they've strummed the whole thing out and Page has got the lyrics for it. And so, I mean, Plant's got the lyrics for it. So, what we're talking about here is something, again, I see more and more and more of this. People are starting to just shut down these ideas of linear time. Start focusing on their activities, whatever they be, painting, musician, speaking in front of a group. It really doesn't make any difference what your capability is or what your intention is. But if you just drop all the expectations and just let it fly, wonderful things can do happen.
Exactly.
Mozart. Bach, put them on.
Time for the music.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all these down, and I'm going to turn this guy up. And he's already been talking to us for a while. So I could take a different radio and try a different radio. I think that might be a better idea. Since we already know that he's coming through the yellow radio, let's just play a game and let's see if he'll come through our red radio. I will play, I'm going to play a Bach piece, and we'll sit and we'll listen to it for a few minutes, and we'll see what happens, what we can come up with. So let me get this going here.
Exciting stuff.
I got to set it up. Okay, here we go. He's already talking on this radio, and I haven't even broadcast yet. There he goes. See, he's already on the red cardinal. Turn him down. Okay. Now he's responding continuously. That's the red radio I just used.
And the yellow too.
Yellow's going, yeah.
Yes, the yellow one's coming back too. Yes.
I feel a little sorry today for the blue radio.
Well, that's
Okay.
what I think we have to sort of point out.
I'll turn these other ones down, and I'm going to play the next piece here into the blue.
Yeah, I think that's what we have to people have to realize is that if it was coming from some foreign, like across the yard, they'd all be going off. The fact that they're not all going off indicates that it's not some signal in your yard.
That's a good point.
Okay, that's Mr. Blue. We're all on now.
You know, you mentioned the mathematics involved in this, and that's a really interesting thing, I think, because I think we've come to understand the mathematics of classical music anyway, and how that all translates. What that would mean to me is that they're getting multiple messages. They're getting the mathematical message of the music. They're getting the frequency, the vibration of the music, the sound itself. They may be gleaning out other particular pieces of information from that music that we're not even capable of hearing or understanding. One of the extraterrestrial channeled information folks, Daryl Anka, and was asking Bashar, his channeled entity, about music. And he said, our music is a lot more simple. It's usually a chord or two or three chords. And he said, from that, though, we glean more information than you do from an entire symphony.
Well, I think they can finish the piece. When I just play a little bit, I think they can finish the whole piece by themselves.
It was interesting that it kind of reaffirmed the idea that we have, we hear with our ears and we see with our eyes, but there's other senses that we've either yet to tap into or cannot tap into while we're, living our physical reality lives here. But that there is a much more information going on, and what they perceive, all of what Gary's doing with his classical pieces, boy, wouldn't that be an interesting thing to have a lecture on from an AET? What do you hear when you hear Mozart?
Yeah, well, Mozart was really, Bach and Mozart were really into the mathematical thing of breaking everything up in fours and eights and twos and everything. And what they did, all these different patterns, I really believe that the patterns of the music have something to do with the fluctuations, have something to do with the sound going out there, that they can hear that there's intelligence on the other end, and then they find out where we are and they come here and they can be with us. But and maybe they're saying, hey, look, these guys are intelligent. They're listening to this stuff. I don't know. But I play country or rock, and they don't respond like they do to classical. I play John Coltrane or Love Supreme, and sure, they'll show up, but not in a way that they will when I'm playing one of the Vespers by Rachmaninoff.
Wow. Any plans for the future in terms of where you want to take this?
Me, I just want to show people that this is real. I want to be involved with them on the level of co-creating. I want to make art with them. So somehow share with my life their lives. You know, I don't know how we can do that, but they're my buddies. I mean, you know, they show up when I ask them to.
Well, hopefully when this goes up on Grant's YouTube and on my YouTube account, that there will be people out there that get switched on by this, and not only will try this, but may have some ideas on where's the next step to go.
He's agreeing with you.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that at this point, it is up for other folks. And Deb, this really would fall into your category as well, because you look at it from a different point of view. All of us do. But that different point of view is how you get education and how you get learning. And hopefully when this does get up on the video channels, this video cast, this Zoom conference, that there will be feedback on those things. And if anyone would like to drop me an email, it's very simple. It's walter@walterrucker.com, and send me an idea, and I'll be happy to pass it along to Gary and to Grant and to whomever that is interested to see what you may have to say, what your interpretations are of this, what your different point of view leads you to believe.
Yeah, the one thing I think we have to remember is that we can only do what we can do, and that we brought up Greer's name, and you'll always hear this thing when you bring up Greer. Oh, Greer did this, Greer did that, and this and that, whatever. But this Greer led to this. Greer led to a lot of different things, and so you know, we all have our drawbacks and stuff. But when we put it out, we never know where it's going to land. That we may inspire the person who's actually going to solve this thing for us.
Exactly. Like I said, my gratitude to Dr. Greer is so heavy from what I got from him. I mean, it was an accident to stumble on him, and then I just went outside with a flashlight and I said, "This is either real or it's bullshit, and you're out of here." And it's real. I mean, I went, when they showed up the first time for me, they lit up my farm like a Christmas tree. I had a big flash over the house. I call it a glitter bomb, where it's like there's a flash and it's moving like a shooting star, but it opens up and then it closes like it's sucked right into the darkness right immediately. And then all of a sudden another shooter, and then a flash bulb, and another shooter the other direction. And they were just wild. And I probably had maybe 12, 15 experiences that night. And I was bawling my eyes out for at least 90 minutes. I mean, I was crying. I couldn't believe it. You're probably saying that these are the guys that were doing it to me.
I'd like to say that if your interest in these things comes from the metaphysical corner, you can always find me at internalwilderness.com. All my contact info is there. And yes, Gary, let's hook up for the next tribe event.
Yeah. When I come up to Chicago, I'll come up and visit.
Awesome.
Just a quick comment on Stephen Greer. You know, there's no doubt about it. He was at the forefront of all this. I don't know if there had not been a Stephen Greer that would be a Gary Borse. But the thing that Stephen did that backed him into the corner is this all aliens are benevolent idea, which is just garbage. And because anybody that has studied, as I have, the abduction scenarios intensely and other extraterrestrial communications and spare communication will tell you that there's two sides to that coin. And there are extraterrestrials that you don't want to fool around with, and there's extraterrestrials that are hugely beneficial. But he stepped on his own toes with that, and it's, in a way, it's kind of sad, because I think that's where all of his criticism, other than the skeptics and the cynics, which I ignore, but the people that are extraterrestrially oriented for communication, all of them have really had to take a step back from that. And I think that hurt his credibility, and it shouldn't have, because if you could isolate away that one statement of Greer's and just look at the body of his work, it's magnificent.
Exactly. Yeah. By the way, I wanted to tell you, I have all the volumes down on these, completely down. And I can't turn them off. I'm coming through at almost full volume when they come through. Why?
Why?
Pretty insistent.
Wonderful display.
Well, I'm good to go here. Deb, you got anything?
Couldn't be any sound coming out of that radio.
That volume is off.
That volume is down all the way. Oh, wait, no, that wasn't. Okay, that wasn't. Okay, it was a sticky button. Okay, now it is. I'm sorry. I kept trying to turn them down, and then I caught a snag. That button's, there we go. Okay, my bad. Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
Deb, how about you? Anything?
No, I'm good. And it's been a pleasure. And I'm so happy to meet you all.
Okay.
Likewise.
And thanks for inviting me, Grant.
Beautiful. Sometime Gary will have to do. Nicole and I have done a number of interviews on art. Maybe you can get some of your art pieces, and we can
sure I could get them
do a discussion on art, because I think that's a critical thing as well. That art is coming through. That's one of the messages that they're putting through. Almost like I heard that the message is in the music, but I think the message is also in the art.
Oh, absolutely. The images. It's about images, and when I first did it, and I tried to come up with something by myself, let them just go ahead and paint through me. I was just open to anything. These beings kind of show up, and all of a sudden on the painting, there's all these different beings, and then I'm dripping paint, and I'm dripping sweat. So every time the sweat would hit, and it would make a little droplet, that would become an orb, and I would just leave it there and just keep on moving around. And all of a sudden, these little beings show up on the painting, and there's these 3 little beings, and I just left them in there, these little dots. And then the next painting I did, there was more of them. And the next painting, there's a bunch more. So that, to me, tells me that something is going on there with little beings and big beings. There are all these different types. There you go. Different types of entities. And I'm thrilled when that comes up, because it's fun. It's exciting.
Exciting. Thanks for sharing with us. It's very enlightening. I love
Grant, thanks for putting this together. It's been a lot of fun, guys. And Deb, good to meet you. And you and I will have some more conversation about all things metaphysical down the road here.
Sounds great. And look forward to meeting you, Gary, or at least connecting with you during our CE-5.
Yeah, whenever you want to come to Florida, we'll have a room for you.
All righty. Thank you.
Thank
you, Gary.
right here. ETB&B. Okay.
We are actually having a session next year, right, Walter? You're putting it as part of your seance.
Yeah. Physical. Yeah. Matter of fact, Gary and I are trying to work out the details of bringing people in, where to put them, and getting a proper seance room. But yeah, we it's all been cleared through Kai. Or I should say through Julia. Because Julia runs that show. But yeah, we're looking forward to doing that. There's a great deal of excitement. We ought to add Gary's CE-5 and his radio walkie-talkie stuff. And
Evan Pye.
Yeah. And other folks too. Like I said, bring in dowsing, some other paranormal types of things, so that we can, have a week full of fun, table tipping, seance, spirit communication, extraterrestrial communication, and hopefully open up the open up the viewership, open up the publicity to physical mediumship, to this CE-5 kind of idea, to other things that don't seem to be getting a lot of play on Facebook or on the airwaves. So we're trying to shine a light in a direction that people will find it's fun, enjoyable, and informative.
And are you having it during the winter when us cold people can come down there, or are you going to have it in the heat?
Yes, not a chance. Let's get this out of the way right now. By the way, just to show you how different it is, I'm in the Southwest Florida. It's 85 degrees here today. It's 67 at the coldest in the middle of the morning. Wow. And Gary is about 600 miles north. I don't know. You're up there a ways from me. Yet he is in cold weather. I mean, he's getting 40-degree temperatures in the evening and so on. So we've kind of we've kind of set this thing around 2 things, Grant. Number one, we'll be warm so I don't get cold. So that's probably April, May, June. And the other is Gary wants to do this on nights when there is no full moon, that there's quarter moon or less. He seems to feel that there is a communication problem with the moons, or see, I told you, full moon came up. And so he has a communication problem with the moon or something like that.
No, it's just that I like to have clear sky without having the moon shines on the humidity and then you can't see the sky. You know, you just have a white glare. So you don't want that. So it's better to do it when there's no moon. And that's when they have all the globals, usually the first and second week of the month. So yeah, well, I threw some dates at Walter already.
You know, Grant, you did ask him about has he been contacted by military intelligence and the like. I'm not sure Gary would tell us if he has.
Yeah, but, you know, one thing I haven't, but you know, you see a lot of trolls on these Facebook pages, and you know that these people, when you look at their profiles and the things that they say. But one night we were out I think it was a month ago, and there were 3 of us that came out here to do a CE-5 one evening, and we were having some success right away, and all of a sudden we could hear a helicopter coming, and I said, boy, that chopper is really close. He's coming. He's got to be coming right through the farm here. And sure enough, all of a sudden he's roaring over the trees, but as he came over the trees, in front of this helicopter were 2 lights. And the 2 lights were about a 1/4 mile apart, and they were about a 1/2 mile in front of the helicopter. The helicopter was about 300 feet above the ground. So if it was light out, you could have seen the pilot in the cockpit. And they just were going about 30, 35 miles an hour. And we watched them go right over the farm and right over the valley and continuing on towards Tampa. And he was following these 2 lights, and we were screaming. I mean, were they drones? Were they controlling them from the helicopter, or they were chasing ETs? It was one or the other. There's only 2 answers. The 2 dots of light had to be either controlled by them, or they were just following them and they were controlled by others. You know?
One thing I can add to that, because it's kind of strange. I have a friend, now I'm going to forget his name, in England, who has a lot of low-flying helicopters. Tony Bintz is his name. He's just outside of London. And Tony has photographs, and he shows me these photographs, and there's the UFO and the orb in the photograph. You know, helicopters. He's got low-flying helicopters, like 50 feet over the hospital in London. And then I said, you got a UFO in that one? Yeah, it's helicopter, low-flying helicopter. And then he has another one. Then I put it on the internet, and a guy by the name of Jeff Sell out of Wisconsin, you probably know him because he's part of the CE-5 group there. He has one with a UFO and an orb. And then you start wondering, like, is this actually a helicopter, or is this part of the performance? Because I put it on the internet and I posted it, and there was all sorts of people sending photographs of helicopters with orbs in the photograph. And I said, has anybody got a low-flying helicopter that doesn't have an orb in it? And it's almost like it doesn't. It's like this, almost like it may be part of the UFO performance, where this is very, very common. And you start to wonder what's actually going on here. It's the same sort of thing. Is they want you curious. They want you to try to figure out what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. What's going on? How can these things, they're not flashing lights. They're not airplanes. What is going on? There are 2 little yellow balls of light in front of this helicopter. Beautiful. What is going on? And they didn't move at all. They were far apart. I mean, but you know,
yeah,
it was amazing.
Well, there's a famous quote from the Harry Potter series, and Harry Potter's having a near-death experience with his wizard friend who's already died, Dumbledore, and Potter says, is this just going on in my head, this near-death experience, or is this real? And Dumbledore says, well, just because it's in your head, Harry, doesn't mean it isn't real. And so the point is that it's all an illusion of sorts, and they just happen to know how to create the better illusions than we do.
Yep.
And let me add one thing to close, because Deb has to leave. In terms of Harry Potter, it's in my book Inspired, how the Harry Potter series came to her. She was on a train going from Manchester into London. She fell asleep. The train was delayed, and she woke up and she said everything was in her head. All the names, all the places, everything was flooding into her head. Even the last line of the last book was in her head, and she said, I had no paper, and I all this stuff was coming in, and I couldn't record it, but all this came in an instantaneous download on a train. So you get the same thing again, that this may have been something that was put into the world to help us understand what's actually going on.
Sure.
I'm done, guys.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, all.
Thanks to everyone.
Take care.
Adios.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.